after working through the night. As you all know, last night, locals, counties, state, and federal law enforcement officers from around the state of Maine responded to reports of an active shooter at several locations in Lewiston, including Spare Time Recreation and Schmenge's Bar and Grill. These law enforcement officers, in the face of danger, responded swiftly, selflessly, and with great bravery. Bravery that they continue to demonstrate today as they search tirelessly for a person of interest in connection with last night's events. On behalf of all Maine people, I express my deep gratitude for your response and for your continued service. I also do so for Maine's hospitals and other medical emergency responders. I'm profoundly saddened to stand before you today to report that 18 people lost their lives and 13 people injured in last night's attacks. In memory of those we lost and in honor of those who were injured, President Biden and I have ordered all U.S. flags and state of Maine flags to be lowered to half-staff immediately for the next 5 days. Maine State Police have issued a shelter-in-place order for Lewiston, Lisbon, and Bowdoin as the manhunt for that person of interest, Robert Card of Bowdoin, continues. I will let law enforcement speak to the ongoing manhunt and to their investigation, but Mr. Card is considered armed and dangerous, and police advise that Maine people should not approach him under any circumstances. I continue to strongly urge Maine people to follow the direction of state and local law enforcement amid this ever-changing situation. Please, if you see anything suspicious, please call 911. There are still many things we don't yet know about these attacks, but the full weight of my administration is behind law enforcement's efforts to capture the person of interest, Robert Card, to hold whoever is responsible for this atrocity accountable under the full force of state and federal law, and to seek full justice for the victims and their families. We cannot and we will not rest in this endeavor. My administration is coordinating closely with local, regional, and federal officials to respond to this shooting. I have spoken twice with President Biden. I've spoken with Vice President Harris, Secretary of Homeland Security in my office, and Secretary of Health and Human Services, Becerra, all of whom have called me last night to express the Biden administration's full and unwavering support and to offer any and all help that we, the people of Maine, might require. The governors of our neighboring New England states and of other states have contacted me to offer aid, and I am sincerely grateful for their friendship and support. We've been in touch with every member of the Maine congressional delegation, all of whom have offered their full support, for which I am also grateful. I also spoke with Mayor Carl Chalene and Auburn Mayor, Jason Levesque last night to reiterate that we are standing by them and that we are ready to provide any help people in these communities need and to deploy all available state resources, including grief counselors and other mental health services. We need to help our communities heal. If you or a person you love needs someone to talk to during this difficult time, please call or text 988 for free and confidential counseling. 988. Look, Lewiston is a special place. It's a close-knit community with a long history of hard work, of persistence, of faith, of opening its big heart to people everywhere. Lewiston is where I worked for years. It's where I met and married my husband and where our girls went to school. I love this place just as I love our whole state with my entire heart. I'm so deeply saddened, as is every one of the 1.3 million people of this beautiful state. This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people. No words can truly or fully measure the grief of Maine people today. Our small state of just 1.3 million people has long been known as one of the safest states in the nation. This attack strikes at the very heart of who we are and the values we hold dear for this precious place we call home. All Maine people are sharing in the sorrow of the families who lost loved ones last night. Loved ones, normal people who were killed or injured while unwinding from a day of work or while spending time with their family and friends, socializing. So on behalf of the 1.3 million people of the whole state of Maine, I hold these families and this city in my heart today. I know that the people of Lewiston are enduring immeasurable pain. I wish I could take that pain off your hearts, off your shoulders, but I promise you this, we will all help you carry that grief. I ask Maine people to join me in offering our comfort to the families and friends who have lost someone, and in offering our prayers for swift recovery for those who are healing in Maine's hospitals today. This is a dark day for Maine. I know it's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. But I want every person in Maine to know that we will heal together. We are strong. We are resilient. We are a very caring people. In the days and weeks ahead, we will need to lean on those qualities more than ever before. As we move forward, struggling as we may, let us wrap our arms around one another, offer comfort and solace and love. I know the Maine State Police will continue to release information to the public as we confirm it, and information about any steps that the public might take to support the people of Lewiston at this time. May God bless the people of Lewiston and bless the memories of those we've lost. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Sasha.
Thank you very much, Governor. We certainly appreciate your support. The city of Lewiston does, the state of Maine, and certainly our first responders. We feel that love every day, and thank you very much for that. I would also say that we want to say thank you to a really large number of other elected officials across our state, whether that's the federal delegation, local elected officials, and many others that are part of organizations or law enforcement agencies that truly wanted to join us today at this particular press event and wanted to speak on behalf of their communities. And as the governor had mentioned, and everybody else will reiterate, our reality for today is that this suspect is still at large. And we want to provide community support for the victims, for the families, and the communities across the state. But we also have an incredibly strong, laser-like focus on bringing this suspect into custody and ultimately to justice. So because of that mission for this particular event and today's activities, we're keeping the list of speakers and the agenda pretty tight. And that will include next up at the podium would be Chief Dave St. Pierre from the city of Lewiston. And some other members of his command staff are present. What I will say to the city of Lewiston, and you know this because you feel it every day, but you're lucky to have a chief like Chief St. Pierre and his entire law enforcement agency. From every level, those officers put their heart and their soul on the line on behalf of their community last night and into today. And they're doing it for the right reasons. They do it because they care. So the city of Lewiston and truly our co-responder family across the state of Maine is lucky to have Dave and his team in the mix with us. And we're also going to hear from Colonel William Ross from the Maine State Police. And Bill will highlight some of the timeline things that you're probably concerned about and certainly interested in from a story perspective. So the Colonel will come up and speak to that. And we'll also have Jody Cohen. And Jody is the special agent in charge for the FBI out of the Boston field office. And Jody will highlight some of those federal partnerships and some of the things that our federal partners are bringing to the table, bringing to bear to help us with this investigation. We also have a bunch of people here. Once you start naming people, you're going to have a problem because you're going to forget somebody or screw something up. But I would also tell you that a couple of our other federal partners are here. Kevin Neal, who's the U.S. Marshal for the District of Maine. We also have James Ferguson, and Jim is the special agent in charge from the ATF for the Boston Field Division. They are heavily invested with staff along with the FBI, and we can't thank them enough for all that they're doing on behalf of our state. I would also tell you that we are going to close with a brief Q&A, and we're going to try to get some of those questions out there. We appreciate your time, your patience, your professionalism, your partnership at getting this information out. I would think that those questions are going to be brief because, again, we do have a suspect at large. And while you can help us with that, we also need to get back to our teams to push forward on that. So with that in mind, I will be back up to the podium to kind of steer that a little bit. But for starters, I would like Chief St. Pierre to join us.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Sawchuk, and welcome media partners, and thank you, Governor Mills, for those kind words. I'm going to keep this short. What I would like the very most is to express our deepest sympathies to the families and friends of the victims of this heinous crime. This is truly a tragedy that goes beyond comprehension. I'm confident in our community that our community has and will continue to come together throughout this endeavor to bring this to a successful conclusion. Although difficult, I do ask the public to continue to be mindful of their own personal safety and also that they be patient with the process as much as possible. There is extensive work and attention to detail that goes into such a large-scale investigation. I'm confident in the expertise and professionalism of our investigators and all law enforcement officials that are currently involved. This is an all-hands-on-deck approach. We have a great deal of collaboration and resources that have been made available to us. There are far too many to name individually, but I think Director Sawchuk named quite a few appropriately. There are far too many, as I've stated, but they are all appreciated more than you know. I want to thank all of our brave men and women of the Lewiston Police Department, Fire Department staff, medical personnel, first responders of any kind that came from far and wide and have come together and continue to work tirelessly in bringing this situation to an end. We hope to locate and hold the person accountable. I think you'll hear next from the state police, who is taking the lead in this investigation. Although that we are working hand in hand with them, I think Colonel Ross will be able to fill you in on a little bit more.
Thank you, Chief. First and foremost, this is an ongoing homicide investigation and search for the person that is responsible for it. We're in the early stages of this investigation, and I just want to let you know we will have updates. We'll be putting some type of a schedule out later on. But again, early stages of a homicide investigation, we want to be careful that we're doing things correctly. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I'm going to give you a bit of a timeline here to kind of fill in some of the blanks and give you some of the facts as we know them right now. A lot of this information will then be transferred to the Attorney General's office, as they will be the lead prosecutor, again, in any homicide investigation. Last night, October 25th at approximately 6:56 p.m., the Auburn Communications Center received a 911 call of a male shooting in Just in Time, or the Spare Time Recreation Center in the town of Lewiston, located at 24 Mollison Way in Lewiston. Shortly after that, at about 7:08 p.m., the communications center received multiple 911 calls about an active shooter inside of a Schmenge's Billiards at 553 Lincoln Street in the town of Lewiston. A large law enforcement response from multiple surrounding agencies assisted the Lewiston Police Department in trying to identify who this individual was and what was happening. As you can imagine, this was a very fast-paced, fast-moving, very fluid scene, very dangerous scene that these guys and girls were going into. 18 people are now deceased at this time. The victims at the just-in-time establishment, 7 people are deceased there, 1 female and 6 males, all from an apparent gunshot wound. Victims at the Schmegley's Billiards, 8 are deceased. 7 males inside the establishment, 1 male outside of the establishment. Again, also apparent gunshot wounds. Multiple people were transferred to area hospitals, Central Maine Medical Center, St. Mary's, and Maine Medical Center. 3 people that were transferred to those hospitals are deceased, for a total of 18 people deceased at this time. The investigation into the person responsible for this identified a vehicle located at the Przebscott boat landing in Lisbon. That person, through the registration of that vehicle, was identified, as been stated earlier, as a Robert Card, born in 1983. Several of the deceased have been identified, and their families, next of kin, have been notified. Approximately 8 people at this point have been identified. 10 people, 10 of these victims, still need to be identified at this time. Currently, there is an arrest warrant for 8 counts of murder for Mr. Card. And the reason it's 8 counts because 10 people have not yet been identified. As those people are identified, the counts will probably go to the total of 18. He should be considered armed and dangerous. Based on our investigation, we believe this is someone that should not be approached. This is someone that should be, if you come into any contact with this individual or someone that you think looks like this individual, you were to call 911, and I'll provide some tip line numbers at the conclusion of my briefing. Lewiston Police Department, federal, state, county, and other local municipalities are involved in a coordinated search at this moment for this individual. So there's the ongoing investigation, and there's a search to apprehend this person. Both happen simultaneously. I can't stress this enough. This is an ongoing investigation in the early stages. More information will come out in conjunction with the Attorney General's office as the lead prosecutor. We can't share all of our information right now, and I'm sure you understand that. I'm going to give out 2 numbers that go to a tip line. 911 is also appropriate for this, but if anyone can call these 2 numbers, this would go to the State Police tip line. Area code 207-213-9526, 207-509-9002. And we'll be sending something out later that has that information in it if you weren't able to grab that now. Again, this is a very fluid situation. We have a lot of resources, as Chief St. Pierre had mentioned earlier, that are on the ground in a coordinated effort to apprehend this individual. We've notified the Department of Education, and they have determined what they're going to do with the schools. A lot of schools, area schools, were shut down today based on our conversation with them. Again, as more information comes in, we'll be providing it to you. Thank you for your time. This is a very difficult time for, I think, the community of Lewiston, difficult time for obviously the victims' families, and it's a tough time for law enforcement. It was a rough night last night, but we're committed to bringing whoever's responsible this to justice, And again, we are currently looking for Mr. Card right now, someone that we'd like to apprehend. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And FBI Special Agent in Charge, Cohen, if you could join me, please.
Thank you. My name is Jody Cohen. I'm the Special Agent in charge of FBI Boston Division, which covers the state of Maine. Our hearts go out to everyone who is impacted as a result of this senseless violence. The FBI is working hand in hand with our law enforcement partners. Our evidence response team is here processing these very extensive scenes. We are providing investigative and tactical support, as well as our victim specialists are working with those affected by this tragedy. As this very active investigations continues to unfold, we're asking the public to stay vigilant and come forward with any information that you might have that you feel is helpful to our investigators. My pledge is that the FBI will carry out this investigative case with rigor. We will work day and night alongside our law enforcement partners to get the answers to the questions this community deserves. We thank the public for your continued cooperation and patience as we continue to work this very active investigation. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And I would say that the reality here from a resource standpoint is that when we've asked for anything, the answer has been yes, period. Tactical teams, evidence response teams, full-blown investigative units, detective units that have come from multiple states, whether it's the commissioners from Vermont and New Hampshire reaching out to me directly, Massachusetts saying, what do you need, Mike? What can we do for the state of Maine? So we are now prepared to try to take a few questions and keep in mind, again, that we may not be able to answer as in-depth as you would like, and we don't plan on taking a great deal of questions. I think follow-up press events will allow for that. Sir?
So no one has really talked about the weapon that was used here, the AR-15 style, so someone can talk about that. But the other thing here is there are reports that this individual had mental health issues, that he made threats to shoot up the National Guard. So clearly there were some signs there that he was on someone's radar. The question becomes, why was he in possession of this weapon? And certainly, why wasn't he stopped sooner?
Yeah, I think those are all valid questions, and certainly questions that we are looking into now, but not questions that we can answer today. Considering that this occurred last night, there's still an active search for the suspect in question. So I appreciate those questions, but not something we're going to be able to answer right now.
Is it something that you're investigating and looking
It is certainly one of those things that we want to follow up on, all aspects of that.
Why does the
Go ahead, right here. Yes.
Can you give us a sense of the ages of who has died? How many are under 18 and how many are over 18?
I'm not sure we have that information with us today. We wanted to break it down by gender because that's something we had readily available. We did not break this down into age ranges at all.
So what can you tell us? What can you tell us about the background of the suspect in this case, or I should say the person of interest, because I noticed the language is very clear. We're saying person of interest, not suspect. So why use that terminology, and what can you tell us about his background?
Yeah, I think we used person of interest last night for half of the room that was here for that press event. As the Colonel had mentioned, there is now arrest warrants for murder for this particular individual, Mr. Card. So he is viewed as a suspect, and there's a full court press by all of our partners to bring him into custody. What was the second piece of that question?
What can you tell us about his background? Shimon had asked a second ago about the idea that he had voiced concerns about his own mental health, right? Had been committed, according to language in a police bulletin, to a mental health facility for weeks. How could someone that fits that profile still be in possession of semi-automatic weapons?
Well, I do think that the statutes around firearms and the possession of those are pretty complex. I know that we will be reviewing that information as we move forward, but that's not an answer that we're prepared to give today, because that leads to motive. You're talking about behavioral health issues and how that impacts this situation. I would expect you'll hear back from us on that in the future. Right here, sir.
Yeah, I've got Just a question about, we've seen helicopters as far north as Monmouth. Can you tell us anything about what's leading you, that far north of the scene where you found the car?
Yeah, sure. So we have law enforcement assets that are deployed over a number of communities doing follow-ups on a number of different things. So as you can imagine, there's a great deal of search warrants that we're following up on. We do have partners, that helicopters from the New Hampshire State Police. That copter was here last night to assist us as well. So whether we have tactical elements out or we're searching an area, some of those air assets would be very, very valuable for us. So that's what they're doing.
That's leading you there?
We're not going to speak to what brings us to a specific community one way or the other. Yes, ma'am. Right here.
Identifying the unidentified victims, what are people encouraged to do? Is there DNA being, tested from family members who may have missing loved ones? Like, what's that approach right now?
Yeah, so we did have a family a reunification center open last night. We do have behavioral health liaisons that are fully engaged to work with families and work with loved ones and work with victims, for that matter, that may be in the hospital and seeking treatment. So those things are actively occurring. We are dealing with each one of those situations separately. So do we need DNA on that? Are we just waiting to find a loved one, some kind of family member that we can make a notification? I think that varies across the board. I'm going to take two more questions. I'm going to take two more. Right here.
Yes, was there some sort of triggering event? Is that something that you're investigating?
I think we're always concerned around motive. That you say triggering event, that's a motive for us. Again, that's not something we're prepared to discuss today, but I do appreciate the question. It's clearly something that's important. One additional follow-up from you.
Can you help us understand why these locations, why this bar, why this bowling alley? Was he looking for someone? Was he looking for something?
I think that does speak to motive, so I appreciate the follow-up, but not something we're going to be prepared to answer today. I'm going to have one more question. Right here, sir. Right here.
Can you say, is Card, first off, to clarify, were the arrest warrants issued today? And can you say if Card is still in the state or even still alive?
Well, we're actively searching for him. If I knew the answers to those questions, and this would be a different press conference, I would assume. So we don't know his location, and I'll leave it at that. And we are working with the Attorney General's office reference to those arrests. So with that in mind, we're done taking questions for now. So we are going to actually take off at this point. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate that.
Have there been any credible sightings?
We've not really gotten many answers.
All right, you've been listening to officials here in Lewiston, Maine, talking about this deadly mass shooting here. The death toll sadly increasing to 18 now, 13 people injured. We're getting a little bit more information about the victims and more information about the timeline, but the key thing that they're highlighting here is that this is very much an active manhunt. Multiple agencies still on the ground looking for 40-year-old Robert Card. He is considered armed and dangerous. Last night, just a person of interest. Today, they are calling him a suspect, and in fact, they have already charged him with 8 counts of murder. Now, remember, the death toll is 18, but what they're saying is they're going to charge him now with 8 people who've already been identified. 10 other victims, sadly, have not been identified. Let's bring in some of our correspondents who are following this story as well. Our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katursky, has been digging into the suspect here, Aaron, and we did get a little bit more information today.
We did. The authorities said they are looking into prior mental health issues as they search for Robert Card and try to understand why he allegedly committed these murders with a high-powered rifle that he had access to. We understand that for 2 weeks this past summer, Card had checked himself into a mental health facility. He had been reporting seeing visions in his head and hearing voices in his head. And also there were threats that he apparently made to shoot up a National Guard base in Saco, Maine. The authorities didn't specify those things, but they did say mental health issues are now being explored, even as one of the police officials put it, this is an all-hands-on-deck approach to try to locate Robert Card before he can cause any more carnage with.
And Aaron, as you were speaking there, just to note to our viewers, they've been seeing these surveillance videos or surveillance images of the suspect. This was as he was walking into that bowling alley. There was a children's event that was taking place here. Witnesses telling us it was absolute horror. Parents were jumping on their kids, trying to shield them from the bullets. We don't have a ton of information about the ages of the victims, but we are getting a little bit more on the timeline and who at least some of these victims are. Let's bring in our Trevor Ault, who is at a hospital here in Lewiston, Maine. Trevor?
Yeah, so Whit, overnight, in the midst of all this chaos, we actually couldn't get a clear answer from the hospitals as to how many people they were treating. And we know now from officials, as we've mentioned over and over, 18 people killed and 13 people injured, more than 30 total victims. And it speaks to the scope of this massacre, the fact that still now, almost 17 hours after those first shots were fired, more than half of the victims who have been killed have not yet been identified. Now, those 13 people who have been injured, that we are still waiting to gather some information on their conditions. We can glean a little bit from that information. It was feared that there were dozens of people who were wounded. 13 is fewer than that. It is still horrifying. It should hopefully lighten the strain a little bit for these medical teams that are working to save their lives. But still, in an area of this population, 13 simultaneous gunshot victims is going to cause a ton of strain. And we know that a number of hospitals in the area have been activating all available personnel, calling them all in. We've been watching through the morning as many doctors and nurses have been showing up here, coming in ready to work, and they're doing so with walking into work past officers who are armed with long guns, because this is happening as the community here is still on lockdown. Of course, the medical staff has to do their job. They're certainly more than capable and trained in treating gunshot victims. But the fact that this community now, after this awful tragedy, is largely forced to stay home when they have to grieve is unimaginable in the midst of an already unimaginable tragedy.
Yeah, this tight-knit community, people not even having the opportunity to grieve when they're gripped by fear. Businesses closed, schools closed, people told to stay inside and lock their doors. I do want to bring back Aaron Katersky again, because, Aaron, we are getting more information about the timeline, and also, as Trevor pointed out there, a bit more information about some of the victims, too.
The first shots were fired just before 7 p.m. 6:56 p.m. was when the first 911 call came in to the police for a shooting at the bowling alley there where you are, Whit. And it was at that bowling alley where 7 people were shot and killed, 6 males, 1 female. From there, the shooting took place at a pool hall and bar where 8 people were shot and killed, 7 men inside, 7 males inside that bar, 1 male outside. So you do get a sense that this shooting had multiple scenes and multiple movements from the alleged gunman, Robert Card. 3 victims who were shot in some of these locations died at the hospital, according to police, and they are now working to identify all of them.
And again, authorities still looking for the suspect, Robert Card, where they did find his vehicle last night in a different part of town, a white Subaru hatchback that was left with the door open and the lights on, but they have not been able to track him down. I do want to bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, because, Pierre, you've been digging into the big picture a little more here, and this is shaping up to be the deadliest mass shooting so far of 2023.
It is the worst mass shooting since the Uvalde massacre involving those children last year, Whit. And law enforcement officials are emphasizing that this man is extremely dangerous. You notice, Whit, during the press conference, they emphasized, do not approach this man. And the reason is because of the information they have that we reviewed from law enforcement officials regarding his mental health status. A person who is highly trained in firearms, a firearms instructor, according to our sources, a person who, as Aaron pointed out, had mental health crises that had been reported. And Whit, the main thing right now that sources are telling me, the reason why you have the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and ATF involved is they need to try to pin this person in to make sure they do not get outside of that region with. And right now, law enforcement officials say this comes amid a massive increase in the number of mass shootings. We used to average less than 400 in 2019. Ever since then, we've averaged no fewer than 600 mass shootings per year. So far this year, over 500 mass shootings, 601 people killed, 2,300 people injured with.
Just staggering numbers. And the governor today, Janet Mills, pointing out, she said to the people who live here, this tight-knit community, she said, I wish I could take that pain off your hearts, off your souls. She said, this attack strikes at who we are in this precious place we call home. Our thanks to our entire team here. We're going to have much more coverage throughout the day on ABC News, on abcnews.com. You can get breaking news alerts on the ABC News app, and we're streaming all day long on ABC News Live. And David Muir will be right back here tonight for a special edition of World News Tonight on the Scene. For now, I'm Whit Johnson. Have a great day.